Yasmat jatam jagat sarvam yasminneva praliyate yenedam dharyate chaiva tasmai jnanatmane namaha Ishvaro gururatmeti murti bheda vibhagine vyomavat vyapta dehaya dakshinamurtaye namaha Taittiriya mayacharya prasadataha vispashtartaruchinam hi vyakyeyam sampraniyate Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishabhai Om Shanti 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 Asadva idamagra asit tato vai sadajayata tadatmanag swayama kurta tasmat tat sukruta muchyata iti yadvai tat sukrutam raso vaisaha rasagyevayam labdva nandi bhavati kohyevanyat kah pranyat yadesha akasha anando nasyat yesha hyevanandayati yada hyevaishayedasmin adrishyenatmye nirukte nilayane bhayam pratishtam vindate ataso bhayangato bhavati yada hyevaishayedasmin udaramantaram kurute atatasya bhayam bhavati tatveva bhayam vidisho manvanasya tadapyesha shloko bhavati. So this trail of arguments through these mantras which we are seeing in Anuvaka 6 and 7, we are now into Anuvaka 7. This trail of mantras is in response to that nagging doubt whether Brahman exists or not. Because that mantra said, Asanneva sabhavati asad brahmhedi vedachet asti brahmheti vecheta santamenum vidhorit. Like that mantra is going. So that mantra actually created a doubt. If people thought Brahman is there, they will be santas. If people thought asanneva bhavati asat brahmeti vedachet, if they said Brahma, the concept of Brahman is asat, then such people will also become asat. Like that it pointed in that mantra. But that very fact that there are two possibilities being talked about, that raises that question, is Brahman really exists? So this whole argument of creation process and all that were actually trying to address that issue. Is there a force of transcendence? Is there a so-called superpower, you call it Lord or divinity or whatever? So in order to argue that, some 5-6 different ways it has tried to argue. So first it said Brahman is the nimitta karana. There are several arguments which we saw. Brahman is the nimitta karana, which is the intelligent cause, the carpenter for a furniture. Brahman is also the upadana karana, which is the wood required for doing the table or a furniture. That also is Brahman. So the Brahman is the nimitta karana, Brahman is the upadana karana. Then it created an argument, it is possible that both can be supplied from the same person. We looked at the dreaming process as an example, where we are able to do, he can also do, sort of. So that Brahman can supply both. It can be both the intelligent cause and the material cause, all those, then the creation process and all that we saw. Then it said that the Brahman also entered into the world. So now it tries to say this world is all penetrated with God particle only. So tadanupravishya, tadevanupravishat, tadanupravishya satchatyacha, about the last class we saw. Sat, tyach, niruktam, aniruktam, then nilayanam, anilayanam, vijnanam, avijnanam, satyam, ritam, sat. Everything it pervaded into whatever you want to call in terms of existence, soft items and hard items. Whatever forms of existence that you are thinking about, the Brahman has penetrated into it. So that much it has been arguing. So it is continuing with the same argument to somehow show that if you are still not satisfied with these, let me give some more arguments in terms of how we can recognize there is a God particle everywhere. There is something called a God particle which pervades everything that we have. So it talks about the creation process, although it talked about the creation process in terms of the material cause and the intelligent cause. Now it moves on to talk about how it happens, the creation cycle, and how it also introduces a certain perspective for us to understand. So that's where it has moved in terms of this anuvaka. So asadva idam agra asit tato vai sadajayata tadatmanag swayam akuruta tasmat tat sukruta muchyata iti. We saw it towards the end of the last class. I thought I will go over it again. Asat, asatva idam agra asit. All the because the previous mantra talked about the manifestation, the things that we can see. That's why he said, I entered into it, I created it, I entered into it. So it is talking about manifested things. Now it is saying what happened before the manifestation. Because there it only talked about I entered into that manifestation. Now it is trying to say what was the state before that. So that's where it is saying, it said asat. Asatva idamagra asid. It was asat, not sat. So that's what it says. So the meaning of asat is, we saw it. Anyway, agram, idam agra asid asatva. So in the beginning it was verily the so-called non-existence. That's how it was. Then tataha, from that, why indeed, sat ajayata. So it created the manifestable things that we are seeing out of an unmanifested form. From asat it created sat. So in common parlance, asat is something which is a dismissible idea. Non-existent is non-existent. Now it is trying to say I created existence out of non-existence. So that doesn't meet the eye. So it merely shows the definition of non-existence is not the way we thought. In the common parlance, non-existent means it doesn't exist. Whereas here, the sat and asat means manifested and unmanifested. Non-existence can be many things, as we saw it in the end of last class. So anyway, it says from that asat, it created the sat. The sat came out of the asat, is what it is saying. Tada atmanam swayam akuruta. It created by itself this, this bodily things, the atmanam, the mind, all these vyaktitva, everything it created. Tasmat, for that reason, tat, that entity, that divine power, tat sukrutam uchyate iti. The a goes in sandhi, it becomes lopa. Uchyate iti. So that is why it is called well done or done by itself, because it created by itself all these. That's what it is saying here. Now, as I was talking in the last class, asat has three components in this context, and that is the real meaning of asat. Because science tells us for us, asat from a perspective of science is different. That which cannot be verified, that which is not available for our comprehension. It could be the karmendriyas, the jnanendriyas, buddhi, chitta, ahankar, and worldly entities, kshetram. Anything which is not in the domain of kshetram is, science says it is not. It's taken a certain position there. It says anything which is not, cannot be captured in any of these, it is not there. Just as, somebody was telling me that the greatest strength of Osama bin Laden was he used none of the electronic gadgets. Today, if you don't have none of the electronic gadgets, you cannot be caught. Because they are all GPS in some ways. So, like that, if something cannot be verified, cannot be found, cannot be available for an observation through any means, science says such a thing does not exist. That's why it's called meta-science or something else. So it is not that. Here, that not there from that perspective is one. And something which is not existent does not mean it may not come. Because if you take such a position, then all scientific discoveries are challenged now. Things which did not exist came. So asat also has things which are in the kitty, which are going to come 200 years from now, 100 years from now, 500 years from now, it will come. Computer was not there 100 years, 50, 60, 70 years back. So internet was not there. So it is non-existent. It's also asat. Non-existent does not mean it doesn't exist. It is not available today for us. It's simply not available today. That is the way to understand. And the third is potentially existent. That is also asat. As I was giving this example last class, one banyan tree, that fruit or something which comes out of it, can shed 1,000 seeds in a year. And in a geometric progression, it actually creates, so many trees are in one seed. So in that sense, something which is potentially existent is also asat in this term. So the Brahman is potentially existent in some form. So that is that asat here. Now look at this mantra from Chandogya Upanishad. It's a very famous mantra. The Tattvamasi is here. Immediately after this, Tattvamasi Shvetaketu will come. It's a very interesting part of Chandogya Upanishad. There, see how it is saying. It says, here it says, Asadva idamagra asit in Taittiriya Upanishad. There he is saying, Sadeva Saumya idamagra asit. So there he is saying, hey Saumya, at the beginning it was Sat only. Taittiriya Upanishad is saying at the beginning it was Asat. And Chandogya Upanishad is saying at the beginning it was Sat only. Exactly the opposite it is saying. It is saying, Sadeva Saumya idamagra asit ekameva advitiyam. Ekameva advitiyam. It actually qualified why it appeared like Asat. Chandogya Upanishad is actually explaining Taittiriya Upanishad. Taittiriya Upanishad it says Asat. You know why it said? Because if the world is only one, it is as good as non-existent. Because in order to say something is existent, you need two entities. An observer and observed. If there is an observer and observed, then you can say something exists. The whole world is one. Who is going to see and who is going to be seen? Not possible. So that explanation, so Taittiriya Upanishad assumed that. When it said Asadeva idamagra asi, it is saying it is oneness. Because of oneness you will see nothing. It looks as though there is nothing. Whereas that was explicitly explained here. Look at the next mantra here. It says, Sadeva Saumya idamagra asit ekameva dvitiyam. Then he says what he says. Taddidaika ahuhu asadyeva idamagra asit. This eka, this oneness is people generally tell ahuhu asadyeva idamagra asit. They, because it is all one, for them it appears like asat. Because there is no second. So that is how it explains. Tadhaika ahuhu asadeva idamagra asit ekameva dutuyam tasmat asataha sat ajayata. So it is now explaining how sat came from asat. In other words, the one started multiplying into many. One moment it started multiplying into many, then suddenly we think there is manifestation. Because manifestation is only by difference. If everything is one, if it is all sheet of water everywhere, then it is only water. Moment you see a seashore, then you start seeing a land. So the second comes only when you have a second one. So this explained that. So Taittiriya Upanishad is saying asadeva idam agra asit. Chandogya Upanishad says sadeva idam agra asit. But it says why Sat looks like Asat. That explanation is given here. Sat looks like Asat because it's all one. No, nothing second. So this is what we saw last class. I thought I will just say, we already talked about it. So not there. For us in common parlance, existent is that is available for transaction. Anything that is not available for transaction is not existent. Whereas this Asat is all those which are beyond this transactionable world, transactable world. It's beyond all that is this Asat. So there are differences in terms of these. Now there is a very famous suktam called Nasadiya Suktam. Okay, this is a lot of Westerners have actually done some work on trying to, some particle physicists also reading this sukta and trying to make some sense out of it. I see a lot of commentary for this in the internet and so on. Anyway, there's a good Wikipedia page also on which people have written a little bit in Nasadiya Sukta. Anyway, so I took a few mantras. It's a short sukta, about 10-12 mantras. I took about 6 mantras out of it. What the Rishi says there, look at it. It says, Na asad asit, that's how it starts. Na asad asit, na sat asit, tadanim. I am just doing the padacheda. It's all complicated. It says, na asad asin no. Na asad asit, na sat asit, tadanim. At that time it was neither sat nor asat. In other words, it says, I don't know how to explain. So that's what it is actually coming. Now there is a third view. Chandogya says something, Taittiriya says something, now this is saying a third thing. This is in Rigveda. So it says, na asad asit, na sat asit tadanim, na asit rajaha, no vyoma paro yat. There was no air, nothing, no heavens beyond it. It's all oneness. There was nothing to see. That is the conceptualization it is making. Kimavariva, what it was surrounded by? Avariva, nobody know. Kuha, from where? Where was it? Kasya Sharman Ambaha, Kimasid Gahanam Gabiram. This deep water, it looks as though it is in the deep water. What is happening? Nothing is known. He says that's how this it was at the beginning. Nothing could be made sense of it. That's what it says. Na mrityuhu asit, amrutam na. There was no concept of death, there was no concept of life also, immortality also. Nothing was there. Na mrityuhu asit, na amrutam, na tarhi, na ratriya anha. Neither day nor night. Which means the sun has not come into the picture. This whole solar system has not come into the picture. Na ratriya anha asit praketaha. Anidavatam swadaya tadekam. Swadaya, in its own, it looks like it was blowing its own, wind, if at all, if you have to call something like that. So, asidavatam, vatam swadaya tadekam, it was just one. Tat ekam, it was alone. Nothing, it was alone. Tasmat anyat na para kinchanasa. Other than that, there was nothing like a second. So, this is explaining the manifestation came out of something called non-existence, but it gives the explanation to the non-existent. It is one. One is simply non-existence. Because there is no seer and seen. So there is no second possible. That is as good as saying non-existent, because who is seeing and who is to be seen. So that is what it is explaining here also. Tama asi tamasa guhalamagre praketam salilam sarvama idam. It was all darkness. Darkness surrounded by darkness. So the equivalent of a black hole kind of a thing that they are talking is what it is saying. Tamaha asit tamasa guhalam agre. It is all surrounded by darkness, darkness in darkness. I don't know how you can explain darkness in darkness. Darkness can be explained in the context of a light. Otherwise, if everything is darkness, in the very word darkness also does not have any meaning actually. These are all tags which we have created for separating the world of dualities and differences and so on. Anyway, it's a limitation of the language which is being used. It's all that water, salilam, sarvama idam. It's all dark and that's all. Tachenam pihitam yadasit tapas tan mahinam tapaha tan mahina ajayata ekam. So out of that heat and all that, ajayata ekam, one came out of this thing which is all covered with darkness. It has its own conceptualization of how the whole thing started. Born out of the power of heat is what it's saying. One came to be enclosed in nothing. It's only that one which is all, ajayata. It found its own existence in that which cannot be described. It's all darkness, surrounded by darkness, and so on. Kamastatagre samavartatadi manasoreta pradamam yadasit. So even for the cosmic entity, the seed of creation is the desire for which you need a manas. So that cosmic entity is called Maya and all. I mean, different kind of terminology they use. But it says kamaha tata agre samavartata adi. First it desired. So kamayata bahusyam prajayeti. That is being told in a different way here. That desire is a prerequisite for creating whatever you want to create. So the desire, for that desire you have to have manas. So it says manasa pratamam yadasit retaha. Manaso retaha, the seed of that thing is the manas. Sato bandum asati niravindan hriti pratishya kavayo manisha. So that manisha, that people who are the great thinkers, they are able to contemplate this concept and understand it in their heart. Is what, get that wisdom in their heart by the deep contemplation of that this is how the whole thing really works, and so on. Ko adda veda. Who is this? Who knows all this? Ka iha pravocha kuta ajata. Where did it came from? From where did it come? Kuta ayam visrishtihi. How did this creation happen? This Nasadiya Suktam is only questions. It says, we don't know. It looks like a very strange thing. Where did it come? Who started it? Where did it go? The Nasadiya Suktam is full of, it only gives a few sort of indications, but otherwise it is all a set of questions which it asks. Arvak deva asya visirjan Visarjanena nata ko veda yat ababhuva. It says all these devatas and devaha, all that, how did it all came out of this creation? It says, from where did it come? Who started it? All that it doesn't know. Iyam visrishtihi yata ababhuva yediva dade yediva na. That the person who created it knew what he created? Or did he not know? How did he fashion it? Is he or she aware of that? Right? Yo asya adhyakshaha. Who is supervising the whole thing? Or the adhyaksha of that. Who presides over all these? Parame Bhyoman, in this vast expanse of so-called universe, right? Ediva na veda. Ediva na veda. Whether he knows it or doesn't know. So this sukta is full of these questions. It actually, although it looks like a set of questions, basically it is an awe trying to tell that if we get into this level of detail and look at the expanse of the universe and so on, we will just lose our, and I think we will just quickly lose our ability to logically connect, and we will be dumbfounded. So that's another perspective which is coming out of this Nasadiya Sukta. So this also talks about Sadeva, Sadasit, Asadasit. It takes a different view. It says nobody knows what it is, and so on. In Bhagavad Gita also all these are so nicely explained. So I just took 3 shlokas. Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyakta nidananyeva tatraka paridevana. In chapter 2 itself Krishna said, everything comes out of an unmanifestation. Every human being comes out of unmanifestation and goes back to unmanifestation after death. Nidananyeva. After nidananyeva. After, this body is perished, it goes back to a state of unmanifestation. So why are you worried about in between these 60, 70 years or few years? What are you worried about? In other words, it talks about the existence to non-existence cycle. This bija, goes through the cycle of existence, non-existence. So that is what it talks about in that shloka in chapter 2. Chapter 7 he says, Avyaktam Vyaktimapannam Manyante Mam Abuddhayaha. Right? Parambhavam Ajananta Mam Avyayam Anuttamam. He says that people don't understand the ultimate form is unmanifested form. Parambhava is actually what? Avyayam. He says, my ultimate form is Avyaya. In other words, Nirguna. Another way to understand is Nirguna. You cannot put attributes to God. That may be intermediate stages in which we come to terms with this reality called God. These are all intermediate stages. He says, Abuddhayaha, Mam Abuddhayaha, people who are senseless, what they think? Avyaktam Vyaktimapannam Manyante. So they don't understand this difference between unmanifestation and manifestation. They think only manifestation is reality. They don't understand my ultimate nature is the avyakta. So he talks about the non-existence is not something to be dismissed. It is to be deeply contemplated on and reflected to understand that that is the substratum of everything. So that is what is coming in chapter 7. Of course, chapter 8, it talked about the creation process. All those are the Abrahma Bonan Loka Punaravartinorjina. In that shloka onwards, it talks about Sahasra Yuga Paryantam, all those are there. So here it talks about Avyaktat Vyaktayaha Sarvaha Prabhavanti. Every creation must come out of unmanifestation into the domain of manifestation. That's what it says. Avyaktat, from unmanifestation. Vyaktayaha, the world of manifestation. Sarvaha Prabhavanti, that's how the creation happens. Aharagame, when the daytime of Brahman. It talks about the daytime of Brahman and nighttime of Brahman and so on. There are all those numbers, Sahasra Yuga Paryanta and all 1000 Yuga cycles and all that. Ratriyagame, when the nighttime of the Brahman comes, Praliyante, everything will dissolve into an unmanifested form. So the Nasidiya Suktam will come. It's all darkness and nobody knows what it is. It will go to that state. So it is saying that Ratriyagame Praliyante Tatra Eva Avyakta Samyake. It says in that state it will be hibernated in an unmanifested form. And then after again 1000 yuga cycles of such an unmanifested form, the manifestation will start again. So he talks about a cycle of this process which is going through. That's what in Bhagavad Gita also all these are explained quickly in a few shlokas and so on. So anyway, so it goes on. Then it says Yadvai tat sukritam raso vaisaha. Now it qualifies how was this created, what is this essence of this creation. It says Yat vai tat sukritam, that which created, indeed that which was created by that, rasaha vaisaha, indeed that is the rasa. See, rasa is, one meaning is rasa is the essence, rasa is also joy, it's also the ultimate. So rasa is the ultimate of something. That when you do something, you take the rasa out of it. So it is joy, it is the ultimate, it is the pleasure, ultimate happiness, that is the meaning. So he says it is nothing but indeed a bundle of happiness. The one that it created in this world is nothing but, that's why Vijnana Maya, Ananda Maya, in the Panchakosha Vivarana, it said Ananda Maya, then it said Ananda Eva Atma. Ananda Maya is, Maya Pratyaya, I explained at that time, is a constrained version of Ananda. Whereas it is embodiment of Ananda itself. So that is what is being emphasized once again here. It says Rasaha Vaisaha. It is indeed the essence, the taste, the joy of the creation that it made was indeed the essence is that. The essence of the whole creation, the joy of every creation is that. That's what it says. Rasaghevayam labdhva anandi bhavati. The two avagrahas are for a. In Sandhi, you have what is called Savarna Dirgha. You have a and a, one a will go. So if you do a Padacheda, you should know what is coming there. So two avagrahas are to make it Dirgha. Ananda. So labdva is dirgha, akara is dirgha, and then when you do a padacheda, you need another akara which is dirgha. Ananda you need, not ananda. That's why double avagrahas are there. So it says, Ayam rasaha hi labdva anandi bhavati. One who obtains this rasa indeed enjoys that, becomes blessed with that kind of, one who is blessed with that becomes joy itself, is what it is. I'll explain it a little bit. It's a nice way of explaining what it is trying to say. Then it says, ko hevanyat kah pranyat. Kaha hi eva anyat. It is breathing out. Anyat is breathing out. Kaha pranyat, breathing in. Right? How can one breathe in and breathe out? Yadesha akasha anando nasyat. In that akasha, this rasa is not there. How can you do the breathing? In other words, the very existence of us is an indication that he is actually part of us. That is what it is saying. He is that life force behind all that is happening, is what it is trying to say. Yat yeshaha akashaha anandaha nasyat. If that air and that thing is not going through, ko hevanyat kah pranyat. Who will be able to breathe in and breathe out? So he is the essence. In your own experience, you see, he is the essence and the joy of what you are, is what it is saying. Yesha hi eva anandaha yati. He alone gives that ultimate of joy. The source of joy, if at all it exists in the creation in whatever ways, he gives it. That's what it says. In fact, this Vidyaranya, who is this Rajarishi in Sringeri several years back, he wrote a Panchadashi, 15 chapters. Last 5 chapters are only on Yogananda, Brahmananda, Vishayananda and Vidyananda and so on. He has explained this, how this ultimate divinity manifests in different forms of joy. At the last 5 chapters of his 15 chapters. In Panchadashi, the last 5 are on these types of Ananda. So the Shruti is trying to suggest that another proof of existence of Brahman is joy. The joy that we get is only the indication of the Brahman. So let us see a little bit of explanation of this. Now we'll go to this first mantra, ko hevanyat kak pranyat. If somebody is not there, how can you breathe? See, we have assumed all our involuntary acts, we are not even giving any credit to it. So many respirations we do per day. The digestion process, the excretion process, the ability to think, the ability to whatever you may call it, all those we don't even think who is doing it. We have just assumed it away. It are all involuntary. Whereas all other things which we make effort to do, we claim I am doing it. I am doing this, I am doing. The question is, who is doing all that? That is what the Shruti is asking. Who is doing all that? That is one argument. But look at this. Suppose there is another argument which people make. Suppose you merely add salt. Take a patra. There is a cooking recipe is there. It says, you need so much of water, so much of salt, so much of this and this, and so much of heat also. So you put all of them into one place and keep it. You don't get your food items, sambar, ambar, nothing. You don't. I don't think anybody will ever make a sambar by simply adding all that into it, and then the moment I have added everything, it comes. That's why in Tamil, there is a very famous lady. That lady was about 60 years back. She wrote a book. In Tamil, it is called Samithu Par. Cook and see. He never said cook and eat. Her book had 3 volumes. It's called Cook and See. Because merely by putting all that together, your food will never come. I mean, she had such a sense of thing to title the book as Cook and See. 3 volumes. So you can cook and see. Point is, how is the sambar coming? Sambar is not merely putting all the ingredient together. Similarly, look at the next example. By merely bringing together earth, timber, steel, glass and other material, a house will never be built. Although a house has all these, it's not just bringing all these items in so many kilograms with the bill of material and so on. So the point that the argument that is being made is, Even when, so see, in this body there are thousands of processes that are working in mutual dependence. Such a tight mutual dependence at which the bile juice level comes down, something else happens. If liver is something happening, kidney responds to it in some other way. If kidney is doing something, brain is responding. Or if something is happening in the heart, something else is responding. What a complicated process we are running. Extremely a complex process that we are running. So the argument is the conjunction in mutual dependence for the benefit of there is one single entity called so and so. All these are happening because I want to walk and talk. And I want to claim credit that I am talking. See, your talking is the minor part of the whole story. There are 1,000 subroutines running behind, and which are all very tightly linked to one another. One error somewhere it happens, unlike our software system, it doesn't stop. God has been kind to us. It is able to continually sort of dynamically alter the logic and programming and so on. So if that one single entity is working, for that if the mutual dependence of conjunction of all these must happen, then the argument is it is not possible in the absence of an intelligence outside of the combination. This water, oil, ingredients, vegetables, salt, water, chili powder is not enough. There is an intelligence outside of all these which is required to make the sambar. In the same way, your timber, earth, steel, glass is not enough. There is some intelligence outside of it which is required. So the argument it is, so ko khevanyat kak pranyat is, who is providing this intelligence? Today's medicine can only tell this system is not working, and if it is not working, we will do something, we'll fix it and so on, and in fact they learn from that. Now the question is, who is running this show? So do you just assume it because we are not able to see it, you just put it at the backside and say we don't have to worry about all that? It is asking that. Who is running these very complicated mutually dependent processes, and what is the intelligence behind it? You ask your own experience and find an answer. That is that rasa. That is actually talking about that there is some intelligence which is wired into it. Who brought that intelligence? In fact, the question who is very, very important. That's why I mentioned long back also, if only Newton asked who fell the apple instead of how the apple fell. He asked how the apple fell. So he found the force of gravity. If he had asked who fell the apple or who fell the coconut and so on, he would have become a Brahmajnani or something. He would have gone elsewhere. This is different, that's a different domain. Today we can't ask the question who with science. With science we can ask a lot of questions, how, what and why and all that. Even some of the whys you can't answer. Some of the whys you can. But how and what you can do experiment, and then slowly you can find out. Who cannot be answered. Science cannot say who thought about such a complicated interrelationship between so many organs here. Science have no answer, but it knows how to repair it. Because that what and all we can slowly learn and then do something about it. It is asking, please ask the who. If we start asking who in our life, for everything please ask who, you will become more reflective in life. Don't ask why it happened to me. You ask who is doing all that to me. It will come back to you. It's a much broader question. Who is a much broader question. That's the question it is asking. Ko khevanyat kak pranyat. Get reflective, you will find me there. Because you will not find any other answer to give. It's very difficult to give an answer. Now if you take this happiness business, now there is so much about, I said rasa is actually happiness, and I said ultimate happiness is Brahman only. Now how do you find it? We have our own experience. Now if you ask what produces happiness or joy, now we can start by saying they are external entities. It's a matter of time before we can prove it wrong. We can start like that. We can say food gives me happiness, the same food will become vesha for you. In chapter 17, chapter 18 of Bhagavad Gita, he has said, in chapter 18 of Bhagavad Gita, he said, Yed arambe amritamiva, antime visham. Rajasic, that is a Rajasic way of looking at things. Whereas yed arambe vishamava antime amritam, that is Satvik. He said, anyway, so we may think food is the joy of happiness. It is not. We will find out. If we are not able to find out early, at least when we grow old, we will find out in any case. Because this is wired into our Prakriti. We all have to walk to the same conclusion. If you say movie and sports, no. After a while, all of them will prove to be wrong. No, you don't even have to wait that long. If food is giving me happiness, I will feed you tons of food and then you will say enough. This cannot be the source of happiness. You will find in no time. Happiness is not in the food. The happiness is reflecting on the food. It is like a spatika in which you keep a yellow color flower by the side of the spatika. The spatika will look yellow. You take a red color bottle and then pour a water will become red water. In a blue color bottle, the water will become blue water. The water is nirguna. When you add it to a upadhi, it takes its color. So this food being happy, movie being happy, sports being happy is a medium on which happiness is reflecting. If we mistake that to be happiness, we will prove it wrong for ourselves. So people are not happy, wife cannot be the source of happiness. I am not trying to create divide families here. I don't mean it. I am saying in the long run we have to understand the wife and husband are not the source of happiness. We may think like that. We need to think much deeper. Property or position, none of them will give happiness. So we can discard all external entities. It's much easier to discard external entities. Relatively easier. You can say, no, happiness is within me. That, to break it to the next layer requires a little more thing. For example, happiness cannot be in the body. Happiness cannot be in heart. In fact, source of unhappiness can come from these organs. The organs cannot give you a source of happiness. At best, they can give you a source of unhappiness so that you go to Fortis hospital and get operated, or surgery is done, or something is fixed and so on. So it is not the bodily organs. That also we know. But we all know everybody has happiness. Please ask, where is this happiness? The Shruti is only forcing us that question by saying raso vai aham. Whole world is nothing but joy. What is it saying? When people experience joy, they should ask, where is the source of joy? And you ask 1,000 times the question, you will find the source of joy is neti we can do, neti vada we can do. We can eliminate, this is not there, this is not there, this is not there, this is not there. Eliminate that itself is a very wise thing. We don't even have to find. You have to eliminate what doesn't give me true happiness. What will remain will be he. That's what it is telling in that sloka. Raso vaisaham. That's what he says. I am that source of happiness. So the question is, what is then the source of happiness for an individual? What is the source of happiness for a dog? For a pig? For a, don't think ant does not have happiness. If you can't recognize it, don't come to a conclusion that doesn't have happiness. These are all very, childish way of understanding reality. Just because I don't know something doesn't mean it is not there. Although to an extent science has taken that position and covered a certain ground, which is useful in a certain way. So the question is, where is this happiness? Where is the source of happiness? And if we inquire that, it will show. Again, I'll take 2 slokas from Bhagavad Gita. Because Bhagavad Gita has everything. That's why it's such a nice text. It's in a very condensed form. So I'll take 2 slokas, one from chapter 13 and one from chapter 15, which will explain the same idea beautifully in a different way. But before that, Chandogya Upanishad. Yo vai bhuma tat sukham, nalpe sukham asti. The Rishi is saying, na alpe sukham asti. Okay? Yo vai bhuma tat sukham asti. Bhumaiva sukham. Bhuma tu eva vijñāsitavyaha. Therefore, go after infinite. The charm and joy is only in infinite. You see, this particular shloka, this particular mantra can be, in fact, this is the charm of all ancient Indian wisdom for me. I actually use this mantra to talk about innovation. In the class in innovation, I use this mantra. I say that please rejoice on big things, think big. Go after big things, pursue big things in life. I use it in a Vyavaharika domain, I can use it like that. But in a Paramarthika domain, in a Vedantic discussion, what is this infinite? Infinite is he. Raso vaisaham. That is what it is pointing to. It says you will find all of them are limited in joy. The infinite source of joy is that creation, that divinity. Go after that. Try to understand that. That's why it says, Bhuma tu eva vijñāsitavyaha. That is the one which ought to be known. Then the student immediately says, Bhumanam bhagavo vijignyasa. Let me now focus my attention on this infinite entity, the notion of infinity. So that's what it is coming. So the joy In this mantra it says, joy is in the source of infinity. Infinity is joy. And what do you understand infinity to be? That is the Lord. That is the whole creation process that we are talking about. So that's how Chandogya Upanishad is actually talking about. This whole chapter 7 is a discussion on joy and all that in Chandogya. So Gita, these are the two shlokas which I was talking about. Look at the shloka in chapter 13. Upadrashta, Anumanta, cha, Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwarah, Paramatma, iti, cha, api, yuktaha, Dehe, asmin, Purushaha, Paraha. This whole idea is so beautifully put in one shloka. It says in every individual, Sakshi Bhuta, you can say Sakshi Bhuta. In every individual there is one reference frame. And what it does? Upadrashta, that is the onlooker. Manasakshi, we use the word Manasakshi. That is a reference frame. That frame will never go. That frame is Raso Vaisaha. It says Upadrashta, Anumanta, it is the one which is permitting you to do things. Anumanta, Bharta, it supports, beholds and supports. Bhokta, this is the one which actually radiates the Sukha and Dukkha. The Sukha and Dukkha is coming from there. Kartrutva is from Prakriti, Bhoktrutva is from Purusha. So where is the source of happiness? He is the source of happiness. And by contrary, the source of sadness also he only. Bhoktrutva. He is the Bhokta. Chamaheshwaraha. Krishna says like that in Bhagavad Gita. Paramatma iti cha api yuktaha. He says in Dehe, in every Vyakti, you will find this God particle. And that God particle is the source of joy. Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwaraha, Dehe, Asmin, Paraha, Purushaha, Paramatma, Iti, Cha, Api, Yuktaha. All these, he is also called Maheshwara, he is also called Paramatma, he is also called, Parama Purusha, Parapurushaha. All that Krishna is saying. So that is what this mantra is saying. By saying, he says, Raso Vaisaha. The Raso Vaisaha means that Rasagyhyeva labdva, having obtained that only we radiate that happiness. We are able to, and we wrongly map it onto something. That is not the happiness, that is a medium on which we are reflecting the happiness. In fact, in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is a wonderful, long back in Bhagavad Gita once I quoted it. Let me see, next class I can actually bring it. There is this conversation between Maitreyi and Yajnavalkya. So he says, everything you do for the sake of yourself. There is a nice set of mantras are there. Antaryami Prakarana. There is an Antaryami. You may say, you may do good to me. There is a nice discussion there. You do good to me, not because it is good to do to me. It does good to you ultimately. He says everything you do because it gives you joy inside. The Antaryami is forcing you. That is a Upadrashta and Anumanta. That directs you to a particular thing. So he says you love your son not because the son has to be loved. There is a set of mantras like that. You love your son not because the son has to be loved, because that is good to you. You love your husband because not that the husband has to be loved, it does good to you. It is the inner self which is actually it is good to you. So you are selfish in a way. You do help to others to make them feel good. No, you feel good, that's why you are doing. If you are not feeling good, you will never do. So it is all Antaryami. There is one Antaryami Prakarana, which says the source is here finally. Anything that you do in life, not for others. I mean, in common parlance we say for the benefit of him, you never do anything for the benefit of others. We do because it benefits us. That's why he is Anumanta. He only permits us to do. That's why he is Upadrashta and Anumanta, as Bhagavad Gita says here. It is the source is inside. That forces many things that we have to do. So far in this anuvaka, what it has done is it made 4 or 5 arguments. I have just put 4 of them here. It said Brahman is a nimitta karanam. He said so kamayata bahusyam prajayeti satapotapyata. I brought the intelligence. Satapotapyata satapastaptva idagam sarvam asrijata. So the intelligence, I am the carpenter for the furniture. So that is a nimitta karana. Then it said Brahman is the apadana. It says tadanu pravishya satchatyacha abhavat. It became sat and tyat. It became niruktam and aniruktam. So it supplied the material. It became. So it morphed and transformed into that. So that is the apadana. So it argued that Brahman is apadana. All these are arguments to the existence of the Brahman. That nimitta karana is Brahman. You bring any logic, you will not find anybody. So that nobody is the Brahman. How did the whole universe came? I do not know who put this Neptune, Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter and all these around and then made them go in a particular way, in a certain way. Who did that? The who question is not asked by the science. Science is asking how is happening. Why is it happening and how it is happening. Who is a very important question. Just because it is hanging over there, you will just leave it. I want to ask who did that. Who did that? If you ask that question, it will come. The nimitta karana will come. And the apadana will also come. So that is what it argued. Then it said Brahman is manifesting through all entities in the creation. Niruktancha, niruktancha, nilayanancha, nilayanancha, vijnanancha, vijnanancha, satyancha, nritancha, satyam abhavat, edidam kincha. Whatsoever. Not even, that's why he said, matta parataram na anyadasti dhananjaya. Mayi sarvamitam protam sutre manigana iva. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that. Whole world is me only. It's all like, take a long thread and weave different beads one after another into it. Matta parataram na anyadasti kinchidasti dhananjaya. Mayi sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. So that it argued. Then it said, you look at your own level, don't go outside. Ask where is your source of joy. Ask how is this 1,000 subroutines running. Don't assume it away. Ask who is doing it, who is behind all that. You ask that question, then you will have to reach a source. And that source you cannot be explained in any other ways, therefore it finally goes to there. It's a deductive logic. That I am neti vada. This is not that, this is not that, this is not that, but our logic says there ought to be something. Just because I don't know what that something is, I cannot throw it out of the window. So by neti vada you can eliminate everything. That's why ajnana, you cannot get jnana. You cannot get jnana. You can only remove ajnana. The process of getting jnana is not, there is a certain thing which goes into our head. We are nothing but embodiment of happiness, embodiment of jnana, embodiment of infinity. We have latched upon us a lot of constraints. So the only way to go the natural state is take this avarana out. That is the argument everywhere in Vedanta. So it is not obtaining jnanam, it is removing ajnana. Jnanam is already there. What are you going to obtain? Jnanam is already there. You remove what, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 3, there is this 37th shloka. It says, Arjuna actually asked a question. He says, Baladiva niyojitaha, there is one shloka. Anichanapi vashne baladiva niyojitaha. Why am I becoming a victim of situation? He asked a question like that, for which the chapter ends with 6 shlokas. He says, Kama yesha, Krodha yesha, Rajogana samudbhavaha. Paripantina, it's like highway robbers. Then there are 3 more shlokas, where it says, he gives 3 examples. He says, just like Yatha Ulbena Avaranam, a Sishu is covered in the womb of the mother, you have to only uncover it and take it out. Once it is ripe, you have to uncover and take it out. It is not creating something, it is there, you have to take it out. He gives one example like that. Then he says, a mirror is full of smoky, dusty and smoky thing. So how do you do it? Wipe it and remove the dirt. He gives 3 examples like that. You remove the dirt. So like that, the ajnana is latched on a substratum of jnana. That's why, Vivekananda says human is potentially divine. It's only you have to find that. So we are potentially divine. Vayam sarve amritasya putraha vayam. He uses that very often. Taittiriya Upanishad, it is there. Sarve amritasya putraha. We are all born of immortality. We have latched issues on us. So that has to be removed, and that can be removed only by questioning. So it is not getting vidya, it is removing avidya. The whole argument in this is, can we remove avidya? It is not getting some new knowledge. Removing unwanted knowledge, what remains is actually shining. So these questions will help us to go there. So it argues all that. Then it moves on. It talks about, then how did we get this fear? If you are inherently nothing but embodiment of joy and limitlessness, unconstrained and all that, how did we get there? How did we get into this nonsense? That is a question. It says, so the Brahman, if you say this is Brahman, why is it not behaving? So it says that it developed a perspective, that perspective has to be removed. So he says, that's what it is saying here. It says, Yada he vaisha yedasmin adrishye anatme anirukte anilayane abhayam pratishtam vindate ataso abhayam gato bhavati. The avagraha, we have to get the negative meaning of all of them. It's not bhayam gato bhavati, it is abhayam gato bhavati. So he says, when will somebody become fearless? It says, a person will become fearless when he is pratishtam vindate, his perspective and his understanding is rested on something. His awareness, understanding and his perspective is rested on something. Something what? That is written there. Yada, at that time. Yada he vai are all indeed. We have to add a few indeeds there. He is also indeed. Vai is also indeed. So it is stressing the idea. Yada hi vai eshaha etasmin, in that. It's a saptami vibhakti. Etasmin, in that. In what? That is being described. Adrishye, that which is not visible, which means it is nirguna, it is not saguna, it is not available for some shape and color and form and all that. So invisible, this is the English we have to be careful. Invisible is not non-existent. Invisible is that it is beyond guna. Beyond, it's like, electricity is invisible, but at times it manifests through some gadgets. It is able to manifest through some gadgets, but otherwise electricity is sort of invisible. It's like that. So invisible, adrishye, anatme, which is doesn't have an atma per se, because it is everywhere. Anirukte, it cannot be established this way or that way. Nirukta is not possible. Anirukte, anilayane, it cannot be positioned and stationed in one place. If you say this is where God is, the rest of the world becomes godless now. So it is not nilayane, it is anilayane. And abhayam pratishtam vindate. So if a person is able to develop this perspective of the reality, what happens? Ata, thereafter, saha abhayam gato bhavati. That is how he becomes fearless. Until we are able to get it, we will get fear. And a person who is able to do all this, look at the properties here. It says adrishye, it cannot be seen. And then it says anatme, anirukte, anilayane. If you have to put all these four conditions, do you know what is the mega condition which will satisfy all of them? You should see only one. You cannot see a second one. Because this will hold good only. That's why the asadeva idamagrasi actually happened. If you see only one in the world, these are all artificial separations between you and me, and if you are able to develop that kind of a perspective of oneness, if somebody develops a perspective of oneness, then it says abhayam gato bhavati. He indeed becomes fearless. And by contrast, the mantra says, Yada hi vai yesha etasmin tu adaram antaram kurute. That is how you have to split it. There is a tu in between. Etasmin tu will in sandhi will become nu. Takara and nakara will become nakara in sandhi. So etasmin tu adaram antaram kurute ata tasya bhayam bhavati tat eva bhayam vidushaha amanvanasya tadapyesha shloko bhavati. It says that person, amanvanaha, one who is manvanahana, who is not reflective, who is not able to think through these very well elaborately and come to terms with that, amanvanasya. For those who is not able to reflect on these, he will get into fear because he sees the world as you and me. The moment you see you and me, fear comes in. Because I have to protect myself, I am very worried that, world is aggressive when you have divisions. If there is a way by which there are no divisions, divisions are only an operational, arrangement, but conceptually if the world is one, nobody will get fear. Fear comes when you see you are different from me, this is different from me, this is different, that is different, then the fear starts. So he says that udaram antaram kurute, that one who starts making that antaram, the distinction. Little distinction, moment he brings a world of distinction into it, fear, he will have to buy the fear. This is buy one, take one free. If you say, I want to live in the world of duality, you cannot live without fear. That's what the Shruti is saying. You cannot take fear out of you until you are able to see world of multiplicity. Because it is a package deal. Moment you have world of multiplicity, fear is part of the story. That's what it is actually. It is conceptually arguing this. We will see it in the next class a little bit more when we go in the next class.